Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin. How's it going?
I'm good. Happy Flag Day.
Happy early birthday.
Oh, thank you. Is Flag Day a thing where you live?
Well, I'm sure it is, but it's not like in the stores or anything. The stores are filled with summer barbecue and 4th of July stuff right now. Oh, and we have at our grocery store a huge Pride display.
Yeah.
But nothing. And it's funny because it's like, I wonder if Flag Day, I mean, I'm sure it was for the American flag, but I wonder if it's like all flags.
I always feel like in Baltimore, because it's like Francis Scott Key and the national anthem, I don't know, people love any opportunity to be like extra patriotic and stuff.
What's funny about, like the East Coast and West Coast, and of course, I mean, this isn't the entire East Coast or the entire West Coast. This is, what I view as like Baltimore and Boston and DC versus Marysville, Washington. So, but people here drive around with huge flags, like the full-on size flag on their trucks.
Yes.
They're waving. And it's funny because over here, that's a sign of, I don't know if we should say it, but, of the far right and all that. And it's so funny because someone told me that, and I was just sort of like, not someone who's patriotic and loves their country. And they're like, well, I'm patriotic and I love my country, but I don't do that. And I'm like, but I love cats, but I don't have a house full of them because I have dogs. That doesn't mean I hate cats or that I'm out torturing cats. And I just think it's funny, just the mindset of, where on the East Coast, it feels like it's more accepted to be proud of your country. It's not considered a bad thing. Whereas over here, it's like a 4th of July display, a really big one. It's just like, and it's just like, yeah, you live here too.
I would say it's maybe a mix. There's a mix of people who definitely are driving around with, flags on their truck that are people who, are very more on the far right end of things. But I think there are a lot of people that maybe just put things up around their home or wear something patriotic-ish that, are doing it just out of the general love for their country. And I don't know, in Baltimore, like all you got really is the whole, like, you got crabs, we got the Preakness where everybody pretends to be really into horse racing for like 2 weeks. And then we got the like Francis Scott Key thing. And then other than that, it's just kind of like murder. So like we take what we can get.
But yeah, the crab there is really good. I forgot about that.
Yes.
The soft shell crab. We have our sushi places whenever I go, and I haven't been, everything has been so screwed up because of the past few years that I haven't been to a lot of places in a long time. Oh, what's happening? It's like a ghost opened the door. What's happening?
I figured it was one of your pets.
It was the cat. He knows how to open doors. So he knows how to because the door was shut, but he knows how to twist the knob. Not twist it, but it's a pull down knob. So he'll just pull it down and open the door. But even though he's been doing this we've been in this house for 12 years. Or maybe 11 years, it still freaks me out every single time that he does it. Because it's just like, dude, that is not cool. But yeah, it's funny because there are people, because a lot of people have flags on their houses. And the way you can tell the difference or sort of like their intent is if it's an American flag or if it's a flag that has a message. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
we have a few houses around with messages. In fact, a friend of mine, she alternates her flags out, and her neighbor, she's very, very conservative. Her neighbors are very, very liberal, according to her. I've never met them or seen. I'm not even convinced anyone lives in that house because I've never seen any sign of life in her neighbor's house. But they're apparently very, very liberal. So she thinks that, I just like to change the flags up to annoy them. And I'm like, but are you?
Right.
Do you really think that they care?
I feel like that's definitely a thing that some people just, I'm going to do this just to get a rise out of people. And it's like, do you really think people are putting that much effort into like what you're doing?
I mean, it's like, because personally, I'm so busy from the second when I wake up in the morning, I lay there for probably 45 minutes. I just lay in bed with the dogs and I turn on YouTube and I just watch a few happy videos so I could start my day on a happy note. My intent is to lay there for 15 minutes. It usually turns into 40 because I'm like, I'll just watch one more video. And from there, I'm getting up. I have to get my cat fed and situated, get my dogs fed and situated, get myself dressed and looking like a human being, and maybe get something to eat. And, I have to get my work stuff ready, and I'm usually multitasking. So if there's any blogging work that needs to be done, I'm trying to slip that in here and there. And today when Johan came home, he asked me, he's like, did you have a chance to wet vacuum? I don't know if that's what you call it, but the floors. And I was just like, and I felt so horrible. He was like, and I'm like, no, because I said I was going to do it. I just ran out of time. It's been such a busy day. And he was like, no, it's okay. And I was like, I promise I'll do it. If not tonight, tomorrow. And he's like, it's okay. And I'm just so freaking stressed. So I honestly have no space to think about what my neighbor is putting on their house.
Right.
It's like if my neighbor wanted to paint his house red, white, and blue, I would just be like, there you go. Sorry for your resale value, dude, but that's all I got.
So you had a really busy week this week.
Yes, I did. I had a lot going on.
So the first thing I thought was kind of interesting was there was this book list that was circulating around of like the top 48 like dog health and nutrition books, and you were on the list.
On the list is number 9 between the Forever Dog and Dr. Karen's book.
Yeah.
Karen Becker's book. But yeah, that was shocking because I had never heard of this website. I had no idea.
Yeah, me either.
They never sent emails out, which, to be honest, when I do lists, they say that you should send an email out just so the people will share it too. Or link back to it. But they did not do that. Or if they did, I didn't get the email. So I was really happy. Someone just tagged me and said, hey, do you know you're on this too? And I was just like, oh my God. I took screens. First, I was just going to promote myself because I was just so happy. But then I was just like, well, wait a minute, where's Scott? Because usually where I am, Scott's going to be. So I found Scott's, and then I just wanted to see how many books were on the list that I recognize. And then I just decided I'm going to do the books in the top 10 that I recognize and Scott's and create an entire post about it, because it's just like, I think even whether or not, this website, they said that they were featured in, I think like CNN and
yeah,
I don't know. I've been featured on like Red Book magazine and I can list a whole bunch of other places. It doesn't really mean it sounds impressive.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like it's a bestseller list type of thing. So, but it's still like really nice to be recognized. And also I could have been anywhere on that list. And I've been on so many lists where they just basically go and maybe Google dog blogger and take the first 20 sites that come up and put them on a list. And it doesn't really mean anything. And I'm on a list with websites that are debunked, but like there is not around anymore, or it's just a really crappy blog type of thing. So it was just really, what's the word? Just honor. It was nice. I really appreciated it. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's all Dr. Morgan, Dr. Becker, and you, Scott. Like you were in good company. No one knew
because I tagged Dr. Morgan, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh!" No one knew. And I love her book so much. It's just like I walk around the house with her book.
Yes, I saw you were cooking from it this weekend.
Yes, I was. And the dogs loved it. Yeah.
What were you cooking?
It was a recipe to rid phlegm from the body. And so the whole idea is that, because as a raw feeder, we're constantly feeding cold food. And cold food is really hard to digest. And it can build up phlegm in the body. And other things can too. But I just know that feeding cold food all the time can do that. And so I wanted to start working to rid my dog's body of phlegm. And it's like I have one dog. Oops, my microphone keeps falling. Scout and Rodrigo. So Rodrigo's 12. Scout is 8.5 and has lymphoma. So I really want to keep them as healthy as possible. And I just noticed that Scout, sometimes he does this coughing thing. And he's done it for a long time, like for years. Like every now and then, late at night, he'll just start coughing and hacking. And I was just sort of like, that's just Scout. He's fine. And now I'm like, that's the phlegm. And Rodrigo does it, not as much as Scout does, but he does it sometimes too. And there are other signs of phlegm in this system, like, the dogs have trouble losing weight. But another thing is that by feeding cold food, our dogs aren't actually getting all of the nutrients because their body is spending so much energy warming up the food so they can process it and digest. And since their digestive system is so quickly, they're just not getting everything. So
I'm cracking up at the cat because every time you try to stop petting him,
he like puts his little paw out like, nope, you're not done. And I have hair floating all around me right now. And it's just like, I'm trying to get the hair out of my face. It's just like, he's so demanding. But so, yeah, so I wanted to, that was a recipe to clear phlegm. I mean, you can add foods like I add garlic, from like springtime granules to their diet. I add kelp to their diet. And there are other foods that you can add. I fed everyone papaya the other day. Or Rodrigo didn't like it, but everyone else loved it. But I needed to do something like, let's push it out of the system. And I actually just made a small meal and split it between all 4 dogs and saw a difference. No more coughing from anyone since they ate that meal. So, I mean, it was helpful. But yeah, I just love that book. It's just so much fun. And it gives you ideas of things that you can feed your dog. So they had asparagus for the first time and everyone loved them. So yeah. And they had pears. I didn't know that they made that red pears were a thing. And so I got green pears and red pears and cut those up. And I got too many pears. So they've been snacking on pears since I got them. So yeah. I love Dr. Morgan.
So how often do you think that you would incorporate that phlegm moving recipe? Like, is that something you would do once a week? Is that something you would only do if you notice them starting to have the cough again?
Right now, I'm going to plan on making something like once a month because I'm doing so many other things. I mean, and also because I started warming up their food. So now, like for instance, this morning they had bone broth, and I didn't warm up the bone broth. I just poured it into the bowl. So it came out of the fridge, but I made them poached eggs. So they were hot and I put them, so that warmed up the bone broth. And I actually added a little bit of fish broth to it as well, along with chia seeds and broccoli sprouts. I got a little kind of fancy. And so I gave them that, but mostly I've been warming up their food by like pouring hot water in it or just leaving it on the counter. Like if they're going to be eating at 3:00, at 1:00, I'll go and take it out of the fridge and let it start coming to room temperature. I mean, it's still cold, but it's just not as cold as straight out of the fridge.
Yeah, I've been trying to make a point to be better about that. I'm usually pretty good in the morning. With my morning routine, I can take it out first thing in the morning and then I don't feed them till a little while later. But it's harder in the evening, and because I have to ask Tim, because he usually gets home from work first, so I have to ask him to take it out. And then if he's cooking dinner, he's like, I don't want food in the sink. So it's a little trickier in the evenings.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like all of a sudden the day gets away from you and it's like, oh no, I have to go do this before I can do this. And so I know they had duck wings like in the middle of the day as a snack, and they were just the wing part, not the drumette. And I just ran those under hot water to take the chill away. And it wasn't like a long, like, oh, this is taking forever. It was just like we have ridiculously hot water. because Johan is like, I want the germs dead. So I just hold it and run it under there for like, 15, 20 seconds and then hand it to a dog and they're fine. So I have noticed a huge difference with as far as phlegm is concerned.
I am crazy about putting alarms in my phone. Like I have an alarm in the mornings because Penny needs to get her thyroid pill like 45 minutes before she eats breakfast. So I have like a Penny thyroid pill alarm in the morning and a Penny thyroid afternoon alarm I usually just tell Tim to give it to her. And, so I'm like really over the top about I learned that when my Lucy was sick and she had such a schedule of like she needed this 2 hours before this and this an hour after that, and so that's been one of my dog mom hacks is
Yeah. Well, for me, it won't happen if there's not an alarm. I mean, I have to, it doesn't matter how it is. It doesn't matter. Like when I message you and say, hey, let's do it at 5 today, I then put it in my phone because that's why the times when you would text me going, hey, are we going to record? And I'm like off at Target. I'm like, oh crap. Because if it's not in my phone with an alarm, it's not going to happen. It's just too many things are in my brain. I'm constantly just thinking.
Yeah.
It's amazing that I sleep at night because my brain, the second I get up, my brain is just it's 10 feet ahead of me just thinking about things. It's ridiculous.
Do you have like a planner or things like that you use?
No, I love planners and I keep buying planners, but I bought my last planner this year. It was so nice too. It's a beautiful planner. I actually bought two. I bought one and then I found another one and was like, oh my God, I love this. And I was like, this is so beautiful. I'm definitely going to use it. I did not. I'm a journal person. And so I have my law of attraction journal where I do my scripting and my goal setting. And then I have actually it's right here, my life journal. And I just write in it and I just write notes of things that I need to do. And if it's something that I need to really get on, I flag it with a Post-it. But that for some reason that's the best I can do. And then otherwise I have some on my phone calendar, some of the weirdest things that I'll throw in there just so I can remember, but it covers everything.
I bought I really like that girl, Jen Sincero, who does the You Are a Badass books.
Yeah.
And so I have her planner. It's the first time I ever bought it was this year. And I love it. This is the first time in a long time that I've actually used a planner is this year. So I'm very proud of myself because like almost every day I'm in it. And that's a good layout.
I think if I had prompts, if I had prompts where I had to do stuff, I would probably do it. But it's just really hard for me to commit to anything that's more than, like, if I'm doing a course, an online course, if there's more than like 5 weeks where every week we do something, eventually I'm going to drop off because I'll be like, okay, I'll get to this next week and I'll just do 2 weeks in one. But before you know it, I'm like, okay.
I'm bad about that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so bad about that stuff, about those online courses.
My cat's coming back. Yes, hello, Cosmo.
So you were also on the news this week.
I was on the news. I was invited by, I think it was with a news station in Wisconsin that emailed me to interview me about raw feeding. And I was it's awesome to be interviewed about raw feeding. But the thing that impressed me the most was that this was a reporter that was trying to get both sides. So she spoke to a veterinarian that wasn't a fan of raw feeding, although she did have clients that fed their pets a raw food diet. And she shared her concerns. And, I was able to share mine. I had her on the phone for, I think it was supposed to be like, oh, just 10 minutes of your time. I was like, please, girl. 45 minutes later, I'm saying goodbye to her because I wanted to get as much in there as possible because I knew it would be edited down to sound bites. And so I was just like listing, I was name dropping. I was doing as much as I could, just talking about everything. I broke down like why dogs could eat raw, why it was fine, everything. And just figured, they'll edit it down to what they can use. And I thought that, what they used of me was good. I didn't come across looking like a dope. Yeah, it's hard because years ago I used to do a workshop here in Marysville for people who are interested in raw feeding. And when they first advertised the workshop, a few veterinarians contacted the city of Marysville to complain and to say how horrible it was. And the people, they were going to cancel me and not let me do it. But my friend, who she's the executive director of our rescue, they contacted her because they knew her and have worked with her. And they were like, yeah, so, and she was like, no. She knows exactly what she's doing. And she, and I was just like, okay, thank you. And so they let me do it. And I actually had really good turnouts. I mean, it wasn't huge, but it was perfect for, like anywhere between 5 to 10 people. And I would go, the next day or early in the morning, go to the grocery store and the Asian market, and I would buy up a bunch of things to show examples of what you can feed your dogs. On one class, I actually made a meal to show them, this is what you can do. It's so easy. And I just explained everything that I was doing. And it was, like for $20 for a couple of hours. And it was really kind of cool. But it was nice because people, and I was just sort of like the ending of the interview, not the interview, but of the segment. She said, just remember there's, salmonella or bacteria in raw eggs and meat. And, and I was just like, like, I know people are going to have a problem with that, but I took it as an opportunity to clarify, this is why I'm not worried about it. And I went back to my website to make sure that, because on my main page, I actually have a link to talk about salmonella. But I was kind of cool because they had my blog. Yeah. And they went, and I was just like, yay. And that's, as a blogger, that is like the best.
The best.
Because it's like, people can see it and they see that, oh, this is like a real professional website. It's not some, rando person, just typing up, manifestos about feeding dogs raw meat.
No, I thought it was very balanced, and I knew they were trying to go for like the both sides thing, but I mean the vet didn't really say much other than like, I mean, at least how they edited it, she didn't say anything beyond like, I have clients that do that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I was really expecting a real, this is bad, you shouldn't be doing this. And then on me, it's like, yay, it's awesome. And so, but it's, it was pretty exciting. And I'm still like living on the high of that one. It's funny because when it came out, I went to Johan because he wasn't working that day, but he was like in the middle. I don't know what had happened. Nothing bad, but he was in the middle of trying to figure something out. And I was like, hey, you want to watch my interview? He's like, no. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then he came back. He's like, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm just trying to figure this out. And I was like, that's okay. I was like, I watched it. It was great.
I always torture Tim with like anything that I do. I'm like, watch it. But I will say he is like my biggest cheerleader, and he's always so excited for me, but it's very funny. I'm just very annoying about it.
Yeah, he's very just calm and just, it's, and I used to think that like he didn't really care and just thought it was this weird thing that I was into and stuff like that. But then I would get calls from cops because he's a retired deputy, but I would get a call from like a state patrol person or another deputy or a police officer, or a text message saying, hey, I got your number from Johan and I have this dog. And so I've been able to convert like canines
wow.
to raw because, the dog was having problems. And it was one of those where he would be talking to someone, and Johan, it's so funny because sometimes I look at him and it's like, do you even like dogs? But then I'll come into a room and he doesn't hear me coming and he's like on the floor, cuddling with the dog. And I have so many pictures of him on the floor cuddling with dogs. Or with Blue, I had so many pictures of him sleeping with Blue. They come through memories on Facebook, and I'm just like, I am so rude because I was taking pictures of him and posting them to social media. This man does not know that I'm doing this. But he would have conversations with people about dogs. And if they mentioned something like, yeah, but he's da-da-da-da-da. And he was like, oh, well, what are you feeding? And he's like, well, my girlfriend, she feeds our dogs raw, and she really saw some improvements, and she wrote a book. And he'll just start like telling, and I only know this from like third parties because he never says this stuff to or around me. But third parties and I'm just sort of like, oh, he's proud of me. Yay.
Well, you shared a very lovely photo of you guys all dressed up this weekend.
We were fancy.
Yes.
Yeah, my niece got wet got wedded, got married. And that was, it was so beautiful. It was a perfect amount of people. It was like probably maybe 50, 60 people.
Oh,
If
that's
that, I didn't count. It was really small wedding. I feel like there were maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6, maybe 8 tables with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people per table. So it's not a whole lot of people. Not everyone stayed for the whole thing, but she looked gorgeous. She had a dress that she got from consignment, and it was perfect for her. We got to watch like the first look because they went and met with the camera, and where Kyle, her husband, saw her for the first time, and it was just absolutely adorable. I actually teared up during the ceremony because it was just like, I've known this girl since she was about 10 years old, maybe 12 years old, because I think I've known my stepson since he was he was 8. So I've known her since she was about 10, 11 years old. And she's a grown woman now, and she's married, and it was so beautiful. But as one introvert to the other, despite the fact that it was a small wedding, I found myself, I think I took about 3 breaks. And it was on a property. It was someone's property where they set it up for weddings. And they had a huge pond. So I went and looked at the pond. I didn't care about that pond, but I went and looked at the
you
pond.
just needed, yeah.
And then
some quiet,
since everyone was sort of scattered, I just went and sat in my car for 15 minutes until it got too hot. And then I was just
totally something I would do.
I was like, wow, people shouldn't leave their dogs in cars, because it wasn't like a hot day, but it was like, it got hot. And I was just like, this is horrible what people do. But yeah, I had to do that. And that was the only way I was able to make it through. But even with those breaks, I think, we got there at 1, and this is funny because Johan was going to leave without me and was like, we'll meet there. And I was like, you said we were going to leave at 12:30. And he was like, no, it's going to start at 1:00. I want to make sure we're getting there. I'm not sure if we have the right address. No one is answering the phone. Are you ready? And I'm just like, oh my God. And I was just like, well, if you have to go ahead and go. And I was just like, I guess I'll just put on my sweats and stay home because I don't know where I'm going. But he was just like, well, if you're coming. And he was like so anxious. So I hurried up and I just grabbed some shoes. And I went to the stairs, and he was at the bottom of the stairs, and we looked at each other, and we were like, oh, wow, you look so. And we were like, wow, have we not looked good in 10, 15 years? I mean, geez, because we were so surprised. But we got there at 1:00. The wedding didn't start till 2.
Oh,
they just wanted everyone there so everyone could relax and have some, but everyone, because I went upstairs to see the bride, and she was so adorable. I walked in, and she's like in her dress, and she was so cute because she was like, it has pockets.
Aww.
And she was so cute. She was like, do I look okay? And I'm like, you look stunning.
Yeah.
She was so beautiful. The hair, everything, all the ladies were so beautiful. But I came downstairs and I looked at Johan, and I was like, no one is dressed except for Rachel. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, you rushed me out the house. And I was like, and now we're just going to walk around and, and stuff. But it was still, we had a lot of fun. And we left 4 hours later, or 3 hours. It was 4 hours that we were there. And we came home, and I put on sweats and just was done.
Yeah.
And I slept that night. I felt like I had taken a drug. I was slept so deeply. And it's hilarious because just, engaging with people and socializing is exhausting.
Exhausting, yes. So we just actually celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
So it's been 22 years since we met and 17 years married. And I always feel like I was the worst bride ever. Tim and I were like we don't like to dance. And we were like the worst bride and groom. My parents had this vision of this amazing wedding, and there was 100 and some people there, and and Tim and I are just like, oh my God, we had to get away from all of this. But I have people tell us that they had that our wedding had the best food and that we had the best music. And those were the two things that were very important to me at that time. So I feel like mission accomplished in that regard.
I know I went to Target that morning because I went through my closet because I haven't dressed up in years. Thank God I lost the weight last year because I wouldn't have been able to fit in anything in my closet because I haven't worn it in years. But even going through my closet, I was just sort of like, none of this is wedding attire. I mean, it was fine, but I don't know. I was just like, I'm not going to be comfortable in this. And I don't know about this. And I didn't want all of my dresses are sleeveless except for one dress, which is, I told Johan, it would have been a great dress for a bachelorette party, but not for a wedding. It was just like completely inappropriate. It was, red and tight. And
yeah, everything I own is black.
Well, that's just it. It's like all of my normal clothes are black and gray. And sometimes I throw color in there just like, and to me, that's dressing up is because I'm, black and gray. And then I threw in like a coral shirt. It's like, ooh.
Like blue is like as colorful
navy
as I get.
I know, navy blue. It's like, oh, I'm wearing navy blue.
Like occasionally I have like a thing that's like teal or turquoise. Like that's about as like color pop as I get.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I like my black. But I didn't want to wear black to the wedding, but right. I didn't want to wear white to the wedding. And I didn't want to wear gray. I ended up wearing black, white, and gray to the wedding. But I went to Target that morning because I was just like, I don't know, I just got to go and get something. And I didn't do a good job with my time because apparently Saturday morning is when everyone goes to Target.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
And no one is there to help them. So the lines were long. And I'm on the phone with Johan and I'm like, I don't understand why this is happening. I'm freaking out. I didn't know we're running out of time. And he's like, no, so it's going to be okay. This guy who rushed me out the door a couple hours later, he's like, it's going to be okay. He's like, the reason why no one's coming out to help, because it's like, why won't they open more register? He was like, they're doing it so that their managers can see how busy it is. And then they'll send even more people up. And sure enough, right after he said that, like 4 more registers open and it cleared out and I was able to get out of there. But I got a black top that was very similar to a black top that I already owned. So it's like, I have a style. And I got this beautiful blue dress. It was so gorgeous. And I wanted to wear it. And I think the reason why I didn't wear it is because it was sleeveless and I didn't have anything to put over it. If I had been able to find a shawl or something to put over it, I would have worn it. And what's funny is now I'm thinking I have a shawl somewhere in this house. I just don't know where it is. A really beautiful one too that would have gone with it, but I don't know where it is. But it was such a gorgeous dress. But when I got there, and it's a very particular pattern. Johan said it looked like a doily, but it was the crochet type of dress. Mm-hmm. And when I got there, my mother-in-law was wearing a blue crochet type of dress. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Thank God.
And then my sister-in-law comes out and she's wearing a blue dress, not crochet, but a blue dress. And I'm like, what's the deal with the blue dresses? And they're like, oh, well, the mother and the grandmother and, like of the bride and groom, they're all wearing blue. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know that was a thing. And I was like, thank God I didn't wear blue because you guys were wearing blue. And I was telling my mother-in-law, I was like, it was totally your dress, just a different cut. It would have been like we planned it. And she was like, oh, thank God you didn't wear that. I'm like, I was like, it would have been so weird. And I don't think it would have mattered, but for some reason we felt just very passionate about that. And my mother-in-law, who is the funniest person on the planet sometimes, she just had me howling all day. And it was such a pleasure just to hang out with her. But my other sister-in-law showed up. She's Johan's brother's wife. Sunny, we are like the only people of color in the family because, for folks listening who don't know, Johan is Dutch and his mother is very Dutch. And so, the two of us are there. My sister-in-law, she is Cambodian and then I'm Black. And so she took us aside and it's not because of our race. And I don't even know why I brought that up. We just think it's funny and we sort of tease her about it. Well, first, before the bridal shower, she called each of us to say, you guys she called Sunny, but she came to my house because she just lives up the road and said, you haven't RSVP'd. And I was just sort of like, do they really want us there? Because I thought that was like for friends and stuff. And she's like, no, you are her aunt and she will be heartbroken if you do not go. And you haven't RSVP'd and you guys are the only two who haven't RSVP'd. And I'm just sort of like, well, where is it? And she's like, it's at my house. It's at this time and you will be there. Go inside and I'm just sort of like, okay. And I walk inside and RSVP'd. And so when Sunny and I saw each other, I was like, did you get the call? And she's like, yeah. And then while we were talking, she came up and she was like, and you will be wearing dresses. And we're like, damn it. And Johan tried to tell me, you can wear pants if you want to. You're fine. And I'm like, no, I can't. I was like, your mom is scary when she's like, and she told me what I was wearing. And so I was so panicked to get an outfit, but I loved my outfit. I'm just so happy. It turned out good.
But yeah, so your picture was lovely.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a good day. I'm glad I don't have to do it for a really long time. I'm just sitting, after it was over, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to handle Super Zoo. Because it's like, I feel like, I mean, I've always had to take breaks when it comes to crowds, but with Super Zoo, it's so exciting that you don't really have time to think about how, where you are or anything. And it's huge. So you just get lost in everything and you're just going. And then at the end of the night, like at 8:00, people are still going. I'm in bed at 8, just exhausted. And I'm up at 6 a.m. The last year that I was at Super Zoo, I was up at 5 a.m. because I had to be in Rodney's suite at 6 so we can all record. And we were up there for several hours before we hit the showroom floor. But it's really so busy. But after these past few years of being on my own and loving it a little too much, I don't know how I'm going to do this because, I mean, I plan to go to Super Zoo. Someone's actually going to, I need to register, but someone's going to fly me down there and then we're going to drive over and have a road trip over, which will be fun. But even then, I've been watching these videos by this guy who talks about all the scary monsters that apparently live in national parks around the country. There's Bigfoot and there's man bear. Well, it's not man bear pig. That's what I call it, but it's man bear wolf. And so it's basically a werewolf, a wolf that can stand on 2 feet.
Oh.
And is like 8 feet tall. So there's that. And then there the skinwalkers. And then there's aliens. And then
more YouTube for you.
And then there's portals that open and people accidentally walk through a portal and they're just disappear. So I'm like, I didn't think about this when I was making the plans, but earlier today I was just like, what if we go on this road trip and I'm never seen again? What's going to happen? And I'm just like, yeah, you're right. No more YouTube for me. And I know this is totally not about dogs, but we saw Maverick.
Oh, okay. The Top Gun.
So good. And I did not like Top Gun. Maverick is so good. Just want to put that out in the universe. Great.
Like, I'm sure I saw Top Gun when I was a kid, but like I have no recollection of it or like no burning desire to, I don't know, see Tom Cruise. I don't know.
When I was young, I was a Tom Cruise denier in that I did not like Tom Cruise at all. It wasn't until Cocktail that I was just like, oh, okay, I like Tom Cruise. I loved Cocktail.
I like that one, and I like Risky Business.
I hated Risky Business.
Really?
Risky Business was a movie of like, I was so anxious during the movie because I spent the entire time like, your parents told you. All you had to do was listen to your parents and you wouldn't be in this mess.
Did Ferris Bueller make you anxious?
Well, Ferris Bueller, they did a good job of offsetting the anxiety. The thing that made me anxious was the car. Mm-hmm. And when he decided not to take the car back, that freaked me out. But then they took it to a parking garage and I was like, okay, it's going to be okay. But then those guys took the car on a joyride. And then when they were like in the garage, and I was a teenager, I think, when that movie came out, they put it up on blocks and they're like, we'll put it in reverse. And of course that's not going to work. But when, as a teenager, I was just like, oh, thank God they have a plan. And so when it didn't work, I was so panicked. So it was like a nice mix of like, oh, this is nice, and oh no, this is bad.
So, in Dirty Dancing, Patrick Swayze drove a black 57 Chevy. And there's a scene where he's like locked out of the car and he like takes like a brick or a post or something and like breaks the car window. My father, when I was growing up, my dad's like a muscle car guy. We had a 57 Chevy. It was candy apple red. And my dad was like so horrified that he would break this window in this car. And so every time I see anything about Dirty Dancing, or even Patrick Swayze, I just think of my dad being like, no.
So Dirty Dancing is another movie that I didn't like. And I remember there was a time, I think it was like TNT would have a Dirty Dancing weekend where they would just play it on a loop all weekend long. And it was like one of my first jobs when I was, newly into adulthood. I was actually several years into adulthood, but, mid-20s. And everyone was so excited to get home and watch. And and people were looking at me, like waiting for me to input, like, oh yes. And I just looked at everyone and I was like, I don't like Dirty Dancing. And I swear those ladies hated me from that day forward. I mean, it's not terrible, but I was just sort of like, okay. I didn't understand why it had to be on a loop all weekend.
It's very funny as an adult to go back and watch it and then realizing there's this whole kind of really heavy subplot.
Yeah.
And then being like, and this was a kid's, like, I don't know, it wasn't a kid's movie, but I don't know, I was like 7 and I'm like, oh, that's my favorite movie.
Well, there's that. For me, it was the movies like, what was it? I think we might have talked about this last week, but the John Hughes movies. Where now looking at them, I still love them, but it's like, wow, I was watching this. There were so many things that I was watching and what's funny is that back then it was perfectly fine. There were other things that my mom was concerned about that I couldn't watch.
Right.
But now it's just like, no, it was pretty bad. Right. Just like, in TV in the 80s, family shows, they used to openly talk about spanking kids, whereas that would not fly today, but that was like totally normal. Oh, life. But that was pretty much it. Oh, and Rodrigo had a massage today. It was his first massage.
Aww. And
that loosened out some phlegm too. But it was funny because I was worried about my friend she massages my dogs, and I was going to have her come and massage Scout because his acupuncturist is out of the country for a few weeks. But Rigo he's old and he was like, he's walking kind of weird. Like sometimes he hunches his back, sometimes he has his back down. And I was just like, you know what, I bet you can use some relief. And she was like, oh yeah, he needed this big time. And I wasn't sure if he would allow it. So I was going to let her, because I'm like working, and I was like, I'm going to let you massage my dog and I'm going to go work. But he was sort of looking at me like, a stranger is touching me. Like, what's happening? And so I stayed there so he would be okay. But it didn't take long before she stopped to turn and start talking to me. And he started pawing at her, like, get back to work. Talk and massage at the same time. And so, yeah, he needed it. And he was like, afterwards, went outside and shook and ate some grass and came back inside, and he's been like super happy and a little more spry. Even Johan came home after his massage and was like, oh, look at him, he looks that would be my cat saying, I want to leave the room now. He's so funny.
Well, we have this weekend will be our chiropractor weekend where we take the dogs out to the chiropractor. And I always feel so bad for Nino because he doesn't really love being in the car, and she lives a good 45 minutes to an hour away. So he's always like got himself all worked up into a lather by the time we get there. But and he seems to really like her. So and Tim always says like she has a good energy. And so the dogs and I actually all have the same chiropractor because she treats both people and animals.
Nice. I know my friend, she does people and animals, and I'm excited because she's going to start looking into acupressure. So I got a book from when I went to the used bookstore.
Right.
And so I gave her my acupressure book, and because she was talking about it, and she's like, the course is super expensive. She's like, but I'm really thinking about doing this. And I was like, well, you can use this book, because the book is like brand new, even though I got it from a used bookstore, and or it looks brand new. And I was flipping through it, and as I'm flipping through it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is intense, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. It has all these diagrams and numbers like A21, and so where to,
like the meridians and
yeah. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to. This is not something that I can just
pick up and
like Judy Morgan's book. I have like all these pages flagged in her book, and I'll pick it up to go, oh, what's this again? And this is not a book that I'm going to be able to do that with. So I let her borrow it, because she knows what all of that means, and at least she can start reading up on it and stuff. And so, but it was nice. It was a nice break to have her come by and take care of my old man. He's feeling so much. So I think I'm going to start doing that on a monthly basis. How often do you guys go for chiropractic adjustments?
Every other month.
Mm-hmm. Was it like that from the beginning?
Well, with Penny, I think we started out maybe going like once every like 3 months. Mm-hmm. But then she went through a period of time where she needed it more frequently. And we were kind of going like every month for a while. And so now, I don't know, I feel like every other month is a good compromise.
Yeah.
So Penny's been going to the chiropractor pretty much ever since we brought her home. I had noticed when we first brought her home that she had kind of a strange gait when she walked. And it turned out she had like a hip injury. And so she's kind of just always gone ever since we had her. Nino, we just started taking him probably over quarantine time, because he's getting a little older. Mm-hmm. And with my old girls, we had our old girl Kalua, and she had torn both her CCLs, and so I'm always like super paranoid about that, because we didn't know about any of these things back then, like massage or chiropractic or anything. So with Nino, it's just more preventively. Mm-hmm. But he's a beefy boy, he's close to 80 pounds, and he loves to fly through the air and jump on the bed and jump on the sofa and stuff. So I don't mind taking him every other month, right? So we just take them both. And if something were to happen with Penny, I can take her more often. Mm-hmm. If I needed to, because she works out of her home like once a month, I think, and then she works out of like a vet office more frequently. With Nino, it's very stressful for him to try to go to a vet office, so I only go when she works from her home. But like with Penny, I could take her to the vet office if I had to, if like something came up and was more urgent. But for right now, it seems like every other month everybody's doing well on that.
Yeah, it's been hard finding people, because I want to get I want Rodrigo to have an adjustment, but I had the best person, because she did chiropractic, she did massage, she did acupuncture, she did acupressure, and she was a phenom with traditional Chinese medicine, and she's in Arizona now. Too far for me to drive, but it's like I would love to find someone to see what they say, because she pointed out some areas where he can use, where he's like really tender, and so he could probably use some adjustments. So we'll see. We'll see.
Do the best we can.
Yeah. Well, Erin, it's been fabulous chatting with you.
You too. Do you want to do a teaser for next episode?
Yes, I do. We are going to have our very first guest, my dear, dear friend, Billy Hookman of Green Juju.
Yeah.
So we're going to nerd out with Billy about vegetables and fiber and microbiome and whatever else he wants to share.
I'm very excited.
I'm excited because they have goat's milk. I'm just really excited about goat's milk that has no probiotics in it, so we can add our own, especially because I got the results for Scout's Animal Biome, and I'll send them to you. I'll print them out and I'll send them to you, because the report looks a lot different than the very first report I got. So it's much more user friendly.
Yes.
And I think I meant to email them today to schedule an appointment. And so it was on my mind, but I will have to do that sometime tonight so that I can actually have a consultation and really truly understand. But one of the things that they recommended was to add fiber to his diet. But the other thing is I reached out to 2 of the supplement companies that I buy from to ask about the what strains of probiotics are in their supplements and found that it's not like a whole, 10 different strains. It's like one or two. And so it would be interesting to see, like, to be able to make a product at home that caters to what your dog's gut is missing.
Yes.
And so
this is what I'm so excited about. Yes.
Yeah. So that is what I'm looking forward to. So, but yeah, I will forward you the report because I know that you'll nerd out on it.
Oh my God. Totally.
it'll be like your birthday present. It's like, give her something to nerd out on.
Totally.
Well, have a happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you so much. 43.
Woohoo!
Yes. All right. Until next week.
See ya.